Talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Thursday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope everybody enjoyed that first Thursday of college football. People, we are here. We have made it. The long national nightmare is over, baby. We got college football to talk about. And boy, oh boy, what a Thursday night that it was. So we're going to talk about all the big games on Thursday. We're going to open, obviously, that Colorado game. It was wild. It was fun. There was sketchy play calling down the stretch. People have takes on Colorado. Don't you worry. We're going to get to all of them. Some people, like myself, think they might look a little bit improved. Other people think they look exactly like they did a year ago, so we're going to discuss that. Then from there, we'll get to the rest of a busy opening Thursday night in football. How about the Arkansas Razorbacks? 70-0. Bobby Petrino, he's back, baby. We're going to discuss them. Missouri takes care of business. NC State holds on. There's a couple games still going on as we are recording. It's about 11:30 Eastern time here on Thursday night. So for everybody who's up late, for everybody who is joining us, we appreciate your support. If you are watching live on YouTube, go ahead, drop some comments in the comment section. We will get to all of them because we got a busy Thursday night. Before we get started, a couple quick things. First of all, please make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Listen, we're here. It's the season. I've been promising you, and we are not going to slow down. We're only speeding up. YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed. Put on notifications. We're going to be going live as much as we can. Obviously, I'm hosting Fox Sports Radio on Saturdays, but we'll have clips going up on Saturday afternoons. Sunday night, we will be back. Well, Sunday afternoon, we'll be back to recap week one. Sunday night, we will be recording, talking LSU, USC as well. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you put on the notifications so you know when we're going live. Also, if you listen on podcasts, make sure to subscribe there as well. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get those podcasts, please make sure to do so. Before we get started, do want to add one more thing. We have ourselves a new partner here at Aaron Torres Media and the Aaron Torres Pod. I am so fired up for this one as I want to welcome in Collie Puffs as one of our official presenting partners. So listen, here's the deal. Many of you, listen, I see the demographics on this show, okay? Many of you are parents. Many of you, I hate to say it, maybe are grandparents. And the one thing, listen, I'm not a parent. But the one thing that every parent that I know tells me, it is hard to find good, healthy snacks for your children to eat that they also enjoy eating. And so we have partnered with Collie Puffs because they are the new age snack of the future that your kids are absolutely going to love. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this company. They are based not far from where I live. Family-owned company. And basically the founders of this company basically said, we got small children. We love them. They're rushing to the snack aisles for the most unhealthy thing. What can we do to get them something healthy? That is where Collie Puffs was born. That is how Collie Puffs was founded. And so what you need to know about Collie Puffs, first of all, you got to visit colliepuffs.com for all the details. But this is a gluten-free. This is no HMO, no GMOs. And the thing that stands out to me about this product, baked, not fried, but they are the new age snack that is healthy and delicious. Okay. They have sent me boxes of this stuff in the Torres household. We cannot keep it. Basically, think about your favorite salty snack, Doritos, for whatever it is. I'm not here to criticize the competitors, but Collie Puffs is the healthy alternative. And the best part is it tastes good. Again, gluten-free, baked, not fried. And the best part is your kids are going to love them. We have had a chance to sample some of these. They are a great, great, great product and a great, great, great snack to have around your house. So for more information, this is what I need you to do. Visit Caulipuffs.com. That's CAULI Puffs.com. And the one thing I need to tell you is this, is one thing about me, one thing about Torres, I will never push a product that I don't believe in. I have had these. They are delicious. You are going to love them. Your kids are going to love them. Maybe even your grandkids. I won't tell anybody. If you got those grandkids, those little rascals running around the house, check it out, Caulipuffs.com. I am here to tell you these snacks are delicious. You are going to love them. And this is exactly what you need in stock for football season. Again, visit Caulipuffs.com. By the way, if you like them, they're also available on Amazon.com. With that said, it's Thursday night. It's college football season. Week 1 is here. There is no more time to waste. So let's get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day, listen, you don't need me to tell you, Week 1, Thursday night. Listen, we're going to talk about all the games. Missouri took care of business against Murray State, Arkansas took care of business against Pine Bluff. But the game that we all wanted to see, North Dakota State at Colorado, year 2 of the Coach Prime era. Let's go ahead and break it down. Let's discuss as Colorado gets the 31-26 win. There are a lot of takeaways, some good, some bad, some not perfect, but I have 2 big takeaways. One, did not love Colorado's clock management. I'm going to blame the offensive coordinator, Pat Shermer, there. I don't know what he was doing there in the final minute, but what also can't be denied, for all the talk, for all the conversation, Shedeur Sanders remains one of the more special quarterbacks in college football. Let's take it a step further, though. Travis Hunter is that dude in that building at Colorado. They say Travis is him. Okay, I'm not a cool, hip, young guy, but he is him. Travis Hunter is him. 3 touchdown catches for the best cornerback in college football as Colorado holds on to win this game, as I said, 31-26. In terms of the game, listen, let me start by saying this. I know everybody wants to make this about Colorado. Let's give North Dakota State a little bit of credit, okay? Because I thought North Dakota State came out with the right game plan, especially early. You could tell North Dakota State, new head coach, they respected Shedeur Sanders, they respected this offense, and they did everything that they could to keep that offense off the field. By the way, every time Colorado's offense came on the field, it was boom, touchdown, score, get the ball back to North Dakota State. So North Dakota State, to their credit, ran the ball effectively early, chewed up the clock early, and obviously we know the deal. Took a 20-17 lead into halftime. And let me say this just in case, so I don't forget it later. Cam Miller, the quarterback at North Dakota State, let's give that kid their flowers, okay? And listen, I'm not going to oversell it, but this kid I thought was poised. I thought he was comfortable. I thought he, was confident, and he did everything that he largely could to keep North Dakota State in that game. 277 yards passing, 81 yards rushing. North Dakota State, again, I thought had a great game plan. Thing is, though, again, North Dakota State had the 2017 lead going into the half. The second half was really all about, I don't want to say 2 things, but it was really about a couple things. The most important thing, Colorado had Shedeur Sanders. Colorado had Travis Hunter. The other team didn't, and that was the difference on Thursday night in Boulder, Colorado. And so when I look at this game, the only takeaway that I have, Travis Hunter is him. Okay. And listen, one thing, let me even say this. I am a Coach Prime guy. We have talked about it on this show time and time again. I don't think he's perfect, whatever. I don't think he's Nick Saban. There's only one Nick Saban, whatever. But the one thing, whether you like Coach Prime, whether you hate Coach Prime, the bottom line is this. The most savvy move that just about any football coach has made in the last couple years in college football is pretty straightforward. It is that Coach Prime at some point realized, you know what? This kid, Travis Hunter, isn't only an elite cornerback. He could be an elite wide receiver, and I'm going to let him play on both sides of the football. So you want to go back to the Jackson State days? You want to go back to last year against TCU? You want to go back to this year against North Dakota State? I don't care where you go to. But Travis Hunter is so special. And the one thing that I love about watching this kid is a couple things. One, first of all, by all accounts, seems like a great kid. He is just so one of one. Elite offensively, elite defensively. They talked about it on the broadcast tonight, but he had a 4.0 GPA last spring. He's just about the right things, but between the white lines, he is that dude. What's kind of crazy, by the way, Colorado fans, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I watch a lot of the well-off media videos that the staff puts out, that Deion Sanders Jr., Bucky Sanders puts out. It doesn't seem as though Travis is going full speed during practice. He's got a different jersey. It feels like Coach Prime kind of was like, you know what, we're not going to push you too hard here in fall camp. And he steps in on opening night, and he was not only incredible, but they absolutely needed him. 3 touchdown catches, each kind of at a crucial point, right? He has that first touchdown catch early in the game. Catch, spin, gone, touchdown, boom, he's Travis Hunter, he's back. Then, later in the game, second half, they're trailing, touchdown drive, he ends up scoring in the red zone, obviously, goes without saying. And then the third touchdown was the crucial one, right? They were up at that point, they were up 24-20, needed to get some distance and some breathing room. And Travis Hunter, that insane touchdown catch where the North Dakota State defensive back is like hanging on top of him. And Travis Hunter, as he's falling, hands all over his face, just makes the touchdown catch. And so listen, like I said, you can like Coach Prime, you can hate Coach Prime. I don't really care. It's not my prerogative. But it doesn't change the fact that that was just absolutely a special performance from Travis Hunter in that game. Really quickly, before we get to some negatives from Colorado, including that play calling late in the game, let me also say this, dude. Listen, I know that if you are not a Colorado fan, some of the Shedeur stuff can drive you crazy. He is an NIL athlete. He's got all the endorsements. He's on all the commercials. And by the way, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. Make your money. Be a millionaire. It doesn't matter to me. But between the white lines, that dude is such a freaking dog, okay? Because you look at Colorado, you look at this game, Shedeur is that dude as well. Listen, I'm not a quarterback evaluator. We're going to see Carson Beck against Clemson, in a couple days. We're going to see Quinn Ewers at Michigan in week 2. It is hard for me to imagine that there is a guy with as much naturally, just incredible gifts that Shedeur Sanders has. 26 of 34, 445 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception in this game. And so Shedeur is special. Travis Hunter is special. Listen, I think that entire receiving room is special. Thought it was interesting. Draylon Miller, who was a highly rated recruit, was committed to A&M under Jimbo Fisher, decommitted after Jimbo gets fired. First 2 plays of the game, they made sure to feed him the ball. And, of course, Jimmy Horn was incredible in this game as well. 7 catches, 198 yards, which is kind of crazy in its own right. Now, listen, couple things. I want to go positive and negative back and forth. A couple negatives. One, the play calling was just weird. And listen, I'm not the dude that gets on a podcast and just starts trashing coaches and pretending like I know more, okay? I'm not that dude. I'm not an X's and O's guy. I say it all the time on this show. Criticize Torres for I'm not X's and O's guru guy. And so because of it, I try to keep my mouth shut on trying to criticize coaches. But Pat Shurmur, what the heck were you doing down the stretch of that game? Okay, so we all know what happened. But obviously, Colorado has the lead. From there, North Dakota State scores. They do not get the 2-point conversion. Colorado gets that crucial first down, and then they decide to throw the ball late in the game. Decide to throw the ball to basically seal the win. And I don't know if they're trying to get Shedeur an early Heisman moment or what, but throw the ball deep. It's incomplete. And the next thing you know, all of a sudden, what could have been, time running off the clock, instead, is now North Dakota State gets the ball back with 31 seconds left. So I didn't love the play calling. That was weird. And let me also say this, like if you're looking for a negative or a concern for Colorado, it's that couple things. It was very clear that I don't know if they didn't early on. It was clear they wanted to try and establish the run. Later on in the game, I think they just felt like the best quote unquote run game is to have Shedeur just drop back and throw short passes. And so I don't know if I don't, let me backtrack. I don't think the O-line is as bad as people are going to make it out to be. But what I will say is when they had to run the ball, they were not really able to do it. And I do think as you start to look ahead to this schedule, it is insane. Starting with Nebraska next week. Nebraska was a top 20 defense all of last year. Forget Kansas State, forget Utah, forget Kansas, forget Oklahoma State. Producer Matt brought up a great point before we started going live. I mean, that back half of the schedule is insane. But I do think if you're looking for a negative or a concern, I thought the O-line was going to be better over the course of the season. Didn't look like it early in this game, was not able to run the ball at all. And I think that's a big concern. One thing I will say, it was obvious to me. Now, you guys and girls may disagree. Drop your comments in the chat if you completely disagree with me. I thought it was pretty clear to me that the defense is improved. Now, it needs to be better. And this Cam Miller kid early in the game was able to make plays with his arm. Late in the game was able to make plays with his legs. But for most of the second half, that defense really did what it was supposed to do. And this is something that we talked about over the course of the last month or so as we started to ramp up our college football coverage. What did I say consistently on this show? I said the defense is much improved. BJ Green was an all Pac-12 guy. Rest in peace, Pac-12 at Arizona State last year. Deion Hayes was all over the field today. He was really good at Pitt last year. The Levante Bentley kid was everywhere on the field on Thursday night. Was phenomenal. He's not a new player, but he was very good last year. And so let me just talk big picture for half a second with Colorado. Because to me, let me say this. I think there's going to be a lot of people, and I already see it on social media. Colorado looks the exact same as last year. They're terrible. They stink. They're going to go 4-8 again or 3-9. Coach Prime's a fraud. Maybe I was watching a different game. I just fundamentally disagree with that. Now, it's not perfect. I'm not saying that this was, the first game on a march towards a national championship. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that when I look at this game and I look at this performance, yes, you would have liked to be a little bit better. Yes, there are concerns. But I think there's takeaways. And if you can't look at that game, I feel more confident in this team this year than I did a year ago at this time. Even when they beat TCU, it was back and forth. Defense couldn't get off the field, couldn't stop anybody, whatever. Worth noting, by the way, and I know everyone's, it's only North Dakota State. Listen, North Dakota State is better than a lot of FBS teams, okay? I promise you. If you put North Dakota State in the Mountain West, they ain't finishing in last place. They ain't getting blown out by the bottom half of that league. And so I'm not saying they're Alabama or they're, fill in the blank, like whatever. I'm not saying that they're the best team that's ever played the game of football. But I don't think surviving against North Dakota State, when remember, they've beaten FBS teams before and they've given other ones fits, I don't think it's the worst performance that I've ever seen. And so in the bigger picture, I do think there's positives. I think when I look at the offense, one, I'm not saying receiver room is as good as any in the Big 12. I'm not saying it's Texas or Ohio State or Georgia, but it's probably in that next tier. Travis Hunter is special. Jimmy Horn is special. I think some of the guys that didn't even really get burned today, LeJonte Wester is special. I think they're going to be really good. I thought the pass protection largely held up. And I thought Shedeur showed he is as good as any quarterback in college football, especially when he has time in the pocket. So when I look at this team, I don't see negative. I see a team that, listen, they got work to do. Make no mistake about it. But this is a team to me that has higher upside than the one from a season ago. I don't look at the negative of a 5-point win over an FCS team. I see it as more so, listen, they scored when they had to. I thought the defense was excellent in the second half until the final, 2.5 minutes. And they did what they had to do. And so it's not perfect, but you get to 1-0. And I do think, I will say this, I am fascinated to see them next week against Nebraska. Nebraska, listen, obviously that defense was elite a year ago, but the one thing you got to remember about Nebraska, they are starting a true freshman at quarterback that, let's call a spade a spade. It's not as though, Dylan Raiola is going to have a ton of experience going into that game next weekend, when they are at home. Now, obviously, Nebraska being at home is a huge advantage for them. But listen, I look at this roster. I look at this team. Nebraska, I'll be curious to see. I think Nebraska is kind of a key game because that defense is going to be significantly better than the one that they saw. But also, I think this defense can give fits to that Nebraska team that, again, is starting a true freshman in what will be his second career start. And then from there, it gets interesting because you got Colorado State in week 3. You got Baylor in week 4. So you have a chance to start off well. But I'm very curious. I'm very intrigued. The back half of the schedule is tough. And I don't think it's fair for me on opening night to start talking, this team, they're not going better than 6-6 or 7-5 or 5-7 or whatever. I think it's just, let's pump the brakes. Let's chill. Let's take a deep breath. Let's figure out what this team is over the next couple weeks. I saw an elite quarterback. I saw an elite receiver room. I saw an O-line that could at least pass block, but obviously they're going to have to run block better. And the defense, again, listen, second half, they were lights out for 75% of it. And I think that's an important part of this game. Really quickly, producer Matt, before we take a quick break, obviously we start with Colorado. Are there any interesting Colorado questions before we switch gears and just very briefly talk about some of the other games from the first Thursday night in week 1? Let's see if we got any questions. All right. Okay. This is from RJ. I think it's a good point. He said, everyone needs to stop with the comments that this was an FCS school. They have won against top schools within the last 7-8 years. Listen, that's what I said. Listen, it's so tough when you talk Colorado because I think if you say anything positive, it's like, oh, you're a homer. And if you overreact negatively, they're not the worst team that has ever walked the face of the earth. And so, RJ's point is a good one. Is, like I said, North Dakota State is not. North Dakota State, let's make no mistake, this is not the worst team that anyone will play all weekend. North Dakota State, as I said, you drop them in the Mountain West, they're going to compete. I don't know if they're better than Boise. I don't know if they're better than some of those top-tier teams, but they're not finishing in last place in the Mountain West. They're not finishing in last place in some other group of 5 conferences. And so it wasn't necessarily pretty. But the second half, that defense was excellent for Colorado, and they did what they needed to do. And RJ's point, North Dakota State has beaten Power 5, now Power 4 teams over the last decade or so. So I give him credit. By the way, producer Matt and I were talking before we got on air. That Cam Miller kid, I got to see how much eligibility he has left because I think if he wants to transfer, we got to see if he has any eligibility left. But if he does and he wants to transfer up after this year, he is a 5th-year senior, so probably not going to happen. But that's a dude that would have a future in the FBS if he really wanted it, because that kid was pretty darn good. So Colorado survives. They get Nebraska next week. I thought it was a great showing for North Dakota State. First-year head coach, first game. I know they're a powerhouse in the FCS. Doesn't change the fact that it was still their first game under a new head coach. And I thought their game plan was excellent. I thought the game plan was excellent from the perspective of trying to, limit Colorado, keep them off the field, all that good stuff. Producer Matt, any other questions or should we take a quick break? All right. So here's what we're going to do. That was the Colorado segment. What we're going to do, we're going to come back. When we do, we are going to hit on the rest of a busy opening Thursday night in college football. There's a lot to discuss. Missouri rolls. NC State survives. How about that big pig invasion down in Little Rock, okay? Arkansas puts up a 70 burger. We're going to take a quick break, come back, discuss all that next. Before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So let's go ahead talk a little bit about the rest of a very fun opening Thursday of the college football season. We could go to a million different places to open this thing up. But where I want to start, I will be blunt, is not a place that I expected to start tonight. But I want to head to Little Rock, Arkansas. Arkansas playing in Little Rock to open the season. And I'll tell you this, I was expecting to see a lot of things on Thursday night in the opening weekend of college football. I was not expecting the Arkansas Razorbacks to put up 70 points in week one. How about that? How about Bobby Petrino? Listen, this doesn't warrant the Big Pig Invasion tweets or t-shirts or commentary, but let's give credit where it's due because this is a team, Sam Pittman obviously coming into this game, a lot of turmoil, a lot of controversy. We talked about it on this show this week about his future in this job. Listen, I know it's quote unquote only Arkansas Little Rock, but let's give credit where it's due as the Arkansas Razorbacks put up 70 against, or excuse me, I think I said Arkansas Little Rock, Arkansas Pine Bluff. I apologize. But credit where it's due. There's a lot of teams playing, a lot of FCS teams this weekend. I don't know how many teams are going to put up 70. So credit where it's due. Arkansas Razorbacks over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 70-0. And when I think about this game, you know what I think about? And I've talked about it a little bit this offseason. But I was in Fayetteville in early December of last year. I went for the Duke-Arkansas basketball game, court storm, Arkansas wins. But the story of that day and that week in Fayetteville wasn't actually Arkansas beating Duke. It was the return and the hire of Bobby Petrino. And I've said it all offseason. I don't think I understood how revered this man was in the state of Arkansas. And listen, we don't have to re-go over everything that happened back when he was the head coach. But to see the buzz and energy in that city, to see, at the basketball game, the chants of "We want Bobby, we want Bobby, we want Bobby," it just showed you the impact that he had, how much this fan base believed in this man. And at least for one night, and I know it's only Pine Bluff. I know. Don't yell at me. But that was a heck of a performance. Think the big story here, listen, Taylon Green, transfer from Boise State. And this was a guy, remember, we talked about him a few weeks ago on the show. This was a guy that, if you remember, was kind of, I don't want to say up and down, but he wasn't like this great, incredible pocket passer last year at Boise State, or really at any point in his Boise State career. 61% completion percentage 2 years ago, 57% completion percentage last year, 11 passing touchdowns, 9 rushing touchdowns, but a 57% completion percentage speaks for itself. So I bring it up because opening night, and I don't want to oversell it, but that was a heck of a performance for Taylon Green. 16 of 23 passing, 229 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 88 yards rushing, 15 yards per carry, and 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And so I know, FCS team, but listen, one thing I'll say, and I've said this for years, everybody wants to tear down the team that looks really good against FCS opponents in week 1 or week 0 or week 2 or whatever. That is not who I'm going to be. Because at the end of the day, every year, there's always a team or two that either loses to an FCS team or barely survives, like NC State on Thursday night. Now, NC State won by 17. You watch that game, it was close into the fourth quarter. And so I bring it up because I'm never going to be the guy that disparages the team that takes care of business against the FCS team, let alone puts up 70. Taylon Green, 4 total touchdowns. He's out of the game by halftime. Arkansas up 49-0 at halftime. And as a team, puts up just under 700 yards of total offense. Yes, I said 700 yards of total offense. And so when I look at this team, I'll tell you this. I think Arkansas is interesting. And I'm not going to oversell it. And I'm not going to, this team's a surprise. But no, let's pump the brakes, okay? But at the same time, what did we talk about with this team all offseason? What we talked about was a team that was 4-8 last year, but was competitive last year against really good competition. This was a team that, of their 8 losses, and again, these are things that we discussed, 5 losses by a touchdown or less a season ago for Arkansas. This was a team that last year lost by 3 on a late field goal to LSU. Same LSU with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and Jaden Daniels won 10 games. This was a team that lost by 3 to Alabama. This was a team that lost by 7 to Ole Miss. And here's the crazy part. All 3 of those games were on the road. So I'm not saying that, Sam Pittman turned into Bill Belichick overnight, but you look at that schedule, 5 losses by a touchdown or less. You lost to 3 teams that were in the top 20 at the time that you played them, all on the road, all by less than a touchdown. I don't know if this team was as far off as maybe a lot of us made them out to be. Now, obviously, it's going to get much, much, much tougher starting next week at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, by the way, is a very interesting game in their own right because they actually play South Dakota State on Saturday. South Dakota State, by the way, we know about North Dakota State. We just talked about them. South Dakota State is a team that won the FCS championship last year. They're the best FCS team. I'm not putting it past South Dakota State to make it a game in the fourth quarter. As a matter of fact, I think it's kind of interesting. People talked about Colorado only being a 9.5-point favorite against North Dakota State. Oklahoma State, who's ranked in the top 20, is only a 9.5-point favorite on Saturday against South Dakota State. That has little to do with Arkansas, but we will see what Oklahoma State looks like. But for Sam Pittman, I think this has to give your team in that locker room some confidence going into what is in a tough early stretch, and then it's certainly a tough late stretch. Obviously, after the bye, you have LSU, you have Ole Miss, you have Texas, you have Missouri. So it certainly gets tougher after the bye. But we've talked about the pre-bye where they have at Oklahoma State in a few weeks. They open at Auburn in SEC play, A&M on a neutral, and then, of course, from there, Tennessee at home before the bye. So I'm not going to oversell it. I'm not going to pretend like this is the best team that has ever laced up some cleats in college football. But you need positives if you're Sam Pittman. You need positives if you're Arkansas. And a 70-0 win will do that. Credit to the Arkansas Razorbacks who get the win. Really quickly, let's rip through some of the other big games from Thursday night in college football. Should mention, by the way, it's about midnight Eastern as I'm recording now, that North Carolina game with Minnesota. It was a late kick. It is still going on as we speak. Illinois is still playing. Utah, which is the 12th ranked team in the country, the team that I picked to win the Big 12, is still in action as well as we record. A couple other games that are worth noting. First one, Missouri. Just took care of business. Listen, again, another team we don't need to oversell. They played Murray State, but they look like you want a preseason top 15 team that people believe has playoff aspirations to look. Thought it was interesting in the pregame. Chris Doering, this game was on SEC Network. Chris Doering said that he believes that Luther Burden, the star wide receiver, should be in the conversation for the Heisman Trophy early on. And I give him credit because I don't necessarily believe that Luther Burden's going to win the Heisman. But I think Chris Doering's larger point was like, we got to stop just focusing on these 3 or 4 quarterbacks, whether it's Dylan Gabriel, whether it's Will Howard, whether it's whoever. Like, let's give some credit to some guys that aren't quarterbacks, okay? And so I look at Missouri, Luther Burden. Listen, they didn't really put too much on his plate. 51-0 win. Brady Cook, 218 yards passing. Luther Burden did have 3 catches for 39 yards. And overall, Brady Cook just did a good job of spreading the ball around. Missouri was up 28-0 at half. They were up 28-0 after the first quarter, 35-0 at the half. And from there, it was largely a cakewalk. Missouri's an interesting team because the schedule does get tougher as the season goes on. It's not brutal by SEC standards. They do have to play at Alabama, Oklahoma late in the year. They also have to play at A&M the first week of October. But this is a team that should be 4-0 going into that A&M game. First 4 games are all at home. Murray State, they took care of business. They play Buffalo. They play Boston College. Then they play Vandy, get a bye before that A&M game. So Missouri's kind of an interesting team. Like I said, they should be 4-0 going to that A&M game. They win that A&M game, they could easily be 7-0 going into Alabama on October 26th. A couple other games that caught my attention. I mentioned Utah still in action as I'm recording. They are up 49-0. I don't think there's going to be a big reaction there. I'll give you one little interesting one, though. NC State playing Western Carolina, okay? Why it's interesting, NC State's kind of one of those kind of frisky, people kind of thought, are they a fringe ACC contender? If we saw Florida State struggle, if Clemson struggles, maybe Miami's not as good as we think, could NC State be a factor? But then as importantly, NC State in week 2 plays Tennessee on a neutral field next Saturday night in a neutral site game, like I said, in Charlotte. And so I bring it up because there's a lot of people just watching that game to see how they potentially match up with Tennessee. This was not the opener you wanted if you're an NC State fan, because Western Carolina had you on the ropes. They were up 21-7 at half. They were up 14-10 at half. They were up 21-17 going into the fourth quarter before NC State rallied with 3 straight touchdowns. NC State's interesting. Obviously, Grayson McCall, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, is their starting quarterback. So we will see what happens with NC State because they are an interesting team. But again, the big story with NC State is, are they ready for Tennessee next week? Tennessee, we talked about with Trey Wallace earlier in the week. If you missed that, Trey Wallace covers the SEC for Outkick, but he is also based in the Nashville, Tennessee, Knoxville area. He goes to a lot of practices. He knows that program. He believes Tennessee is a fringe playoff contender. I think that's really it for tonight's show. Just looking through the comments section, a couple more Colorado comments. DJ said, very disappointing game. These coaches coached like it was last year. I didn't see that. I mean, I thought Pat Shurmur late was a debacle. I didn't think Pat Shurmur, just run the freaking football, right? I mean, that's like the oldest cliche in sports. But I didn't think it was like the worst performance by Colorado or anything like that I've ever seen. But again, do think that it's something that, you got to clean up. Nebraska is going to be kind of the big one. We're going to find out very quickly how good this team is as they get set to travel to Nebraska next week. Did see one Arkansas comment. Chris Johnson says, how about that Bobby P offense? 10 out of 10 drives. I did not realize that, actually. Thank you, Chris, for the comment, which you can see on the screen. Did not realize that Arkansas actually scored touchdowns on 10 of 10 possessions. But listen, that's why you bring in Bobby Petrino. And who knows? Listen, like I said, that team was not that far off a year ago. And so if all of a sudden now you start talking about potentially, you start talking about potentially if that offense is a little bit better, defense, I think defense will be improved as well. They were 4-8 last year. Not excusing it. They weren't that far away from at minimum being 6-6 in a bowl team, maybe 7-5 with the right breaks. Now you get kind of an interesting schedule. It's certainly not an easy schedule, but you have certainly stronger play calling on the offensive coordinator spot. I mean, Dan Enos was a debacle. But anyway, not going to oversell it, but Arkansas, I didn't realize that. 10 of 10 on scoring drives, 10 possessions, 10 touchdowns. That's what you want from a Bobby Petrino offense. All right. I think that's it for this episode of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Tell you what, I think it's time for us to get out of here. It's Thursday, and we got a lot of football ahead. If you are not subscribed to the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, do me a favor. Please make sure to do so. You can do so, by the way, on Apple, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please make sure to subscribe. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, please make sure to do so. If you are subscribed on YouTube, do me a quick favor, put on the notifications so you know when we're going live, because we are going to be going live. We're going to be having a lot of fun this year. We will probably do a couple smaller clips on Saturday. We'll do a full live reaction on Sunday afternoon for those of you who aren't grilling or spending time with family or at the beach. And then we're going live again after that LSU-USC game on Sunday night. So it's a busy weekend. We had our fun over the summer, but it's time to get to work. It's time to get to work. It's time to enjoy some football, but it's also time for us to get out of here. So it's time for us to go. By the way, thank you again to our new partner, Collie Puffs. Visit colliepuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com. The healthy, delicious alternative that you have been looking for in your snack department. Thank you again for your support. Appreciate it. We'll be back, full episode on Sunday, reacting to a busy opening Saturday in college football. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, my buddy, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. You're an NBA head coach right now. Gotta go. Gotta run. It's 12:13 Eastern time. We got more football tomorrow. See everybody soon. New episode.